Hi everyone, this is FA from Analyse, and today I'm going to show you dashboards, a very important tool for understanding data. We will go over what they are, what makes a good dashboard, some tips if you're building them, and finally we will go over some good and bad examples. Let's first go over what dashboards are. It is a term used in cars. It is the screen behind the wheel that has all the information and gauges that you might need while driving the car. At a glance, it tells you what is your speed, do you need to shift gears, or most importantly, if there is anything wrong that needs your immediate attention. Well, a data dashboard is pretty much the same thing. You look at it to gain information into your business or your online retailer or your budgets or a lot of other things that you might think of. There is one specific dashboard that I'm sure all of us have checked a lot in the past 2 years. At a glance, a data dashboard tells us whether we are doing well or not on any of the topics. For example, you might look at your revenues and see everything is going down, and you might want to make a change because of that. Also, dashboards are good for projecting into the future, where we will be at in 3 years or 5 years in terms of revenue or users. This is essentially what a dashboard is. It is a tool to effectively communicate data and insights. And it is a very important tool for any analyst to know and master. After this recap, now I'm going to give you 4 tips for making a good dashboard. The kind of dashboard that people want to go back to day after day, and it is very easy to digest and get information out of. Without further ado, let's start with the tip number 1. Keep it simple. This is an essential tip for making a good dashboard. Remember, we want to get information at a glance and as fast as possible. And the more information and the more stuff that is in there, the harder it will be to get to the actual valuable information and insights you want to give. Keeping it simple is a very important tip to follow. It allows your dashboards to tell your message in a much more efficient way. Sometimes cutting graphs out of a dashboard is entirely okay, especially if it is not adding any information. Data to ink ratio. Data to ink ratio sounds like it should be a number, but it's actually much more conceptual. We want to tell as much information or data as possible using as little ink as possible. And in this context, anything can be ink, from chart titles to random lines on the chart or even grids. Up to now, this tip actually sounds very similar to our first tip, keeping it simple. However, there is one key difference. You first decide which charts to include and which information to tell, and that is keeping it simple, and only then you start thinking about data to ink ratio. Let's go over an example. Consider this graph. It is showing our revenue in this quarter and our target. The information is a single thing. We are above or below the target. Also, it is a bit difficult to read because we have a lot of data points. What if we take this information and show it in this way? We can see we are above target, but also where exactly we are and how much above target we actually are. Subjectively, we can say there is slightly less ink and it has more information in it. This is now a better data to ink ratio, and it makes it a more useful piece for our dashboard. Focus on one area. This third tip is actually quite difficult to balance. In real life, nothing is caused by one single event or impacted by a singular source. As a result, we have a tendency to just put all of the information that we think impacts the main information we have, and we just cram it into the dashboard. The rule of thumb I can give here is try to focus your dashboards in one domain. That means if you're making a revenue dashboard, just make a revenue dashboard with that specific information in it. Or if you're making an engagement dashboard, you might want to actually just have an easily accessible link that takes you to all the revenue information you need without cluttering the actual dashboard itself. And this brings us to our 4th tip. Make it easy to reach. I'm sure this happened to all of you at one point. You look for an important document and it is lost in a pile of emails, or there is one specific bit of code that is actually lost now because it was on an old laptop. It is technically valuable information, especially if we are looking for it, but we have to jump through hoops to get it. And for our dashboard specifically, we want to make sure that is not the case. Over my career, I have seen 2 main approaches to solving this problem. The first one is having a dedicated dashboard tool like Tableau or Looker, and the second one is using online locations from the Office suites, whether it's the Microsoft Office or the Google Docs. Whatever your option is, make sure you use it as frequently as possible. It is both to save your work in a secure place and make your dashboards much easier to reach. In this video, we went over 4 tips to make better dashboards. These are keeping it simple, data to ink ratio, focusing on a single area, and making it easy to reach. Finally, we will go over 2 dashboards. One of them is a good one and the other one is a bad one, and we will discuss what we can do keeping the tips that we have discussed in mind. Here we can see a good example of a dashboard. It is quite simple with metrics on the left hand side and the charts on the right. It has a good data to ink ratio where we can see a ton of information, but it actually just has 2 graphs showing all of this. The focus is on online marketing, and there is no data point here unrelated to that. Finally, our eyes are drawn to the emergencies, like the Facebook cost per conversion being quite high. And we can also compare it to our other channels. Here we have a great case of cramming too much information. It is designed to be the single stop to go to have all the information about London, but it has so many things that nothing is obvious. A couple of examples to improve this would be grouping charts and information in separate pages, like transportation, weather, and news. Finally, change the system so it is easier to reach and not take a long time to load. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you're interested in more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.